this is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, TRG. Let's go. What do you think tonight? You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like.
Above our head for the players.
Literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now,
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do. And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me today, Andrew Quinn. And Andrew, we're here. My dad termed it the buzzkill game. The buzzkill game at Madison Square Garden with ticket prices reaching in the averages of the thousands, depending on which level you're sitting on. The Knicks home fan base spent a lot on this game today, Andrew, but they didn't see what they wanted to see in their Knicks winning. What they saw was a boisterous buzzkill. Celtics win 115-93 on the Madison Square Garden home floor of the New York Knicks. The Boston Celtics get it done on the road when they absolutely needed to. They avoid going down 0-3 in this series, Andrew, after dropping the first two games at home. The Celtics, the last semifinals team out of the final 8 teams in this NBA season, the Celtics finally get a semifinal win. They're the last of the 8 teams to pick up a semifinals win this season. However, the Celtics finally picked themselves up a win in this series against the New York Knicks in the semifinals. But Andrew, you know how we do it here. Initial thoughts on this boisterous Celtics win on this Saturday afternoon at MSG.
I'm going to start with the defensive intensity and the physicalness of the Celtics this game. I thought from the jump they set the tone on the defensive end and gave the Knicks a punch, and they just stayed with it the entire game. They got on loose balls. They crashed the offensive glass. We rim protected like crazy. I mean, there's a lot of chances at the rim that the Celtics took away, and I think we really, really just wore down on the Knicks. I also think offensively, we moved the ball a lot better today. I think when we can get the ball inside, then we can get a kick out and we can get the Knicks in rotation, I think that's when the Knicks really struggle on the defensive end. And then once we get them out of rotation, either we attack a closeout or we get a good swing to the corner for a Pritchard 3 or a Horford 3. And I think, and then we stay within our offense and see that we can kind of pick up momentum. You know, when Tatum and Brown on a couple occasions did this when they had 5 jab steps at the top of the key and just hucked it up as my flag falls down behind me.
And I'm looking at it in the back. I'm like, oh no, it's gone.
It's okay. The Celtics won. That's all that matters.
Would rather that flag fall than the Celtics today. We'll say
exactly. And I just think that when JB or Tatum kind of get up at the top of the wing and start jabbing and start letting the defense settle, that's when the Knicks have an opportunity to grab rebounds. It prevents the Celtics from chasing the offensive boards. So we need to, there was a couple times that we did it. We cut it out, which was awesome. And I think we really improved upon that. But I do think that it's important to make sure that we continue to be not stay stagnant, because then that kind of gives the Knicks a little more momentum. It takes us out of our momentum, and then we got to find a way to pick it back up again, letting the Knicks kind of have hope and kind of crawl back in. And then, Seamus, I'm sure you're going to talk about it, but I think Joe Mazzulla had great offensive management today, game management. I think a lot of times the Knicks crowd was rowdy. Don't get me wrong, they were ready to go, but a lot of the times the Knicks would kind of feel like they're have an opportunity to kind of come back in the game, but Joe Mazzulla would call a timeout, kill the noise, kill the crowd, and just find a way to get right back into it. And I think that's it that I have from it. I'm just happy with the energy that they brought, and I'm happy that we imposed our will today.
Well, I noticed so far here, Andrew, no Knicks fans in the broadcast. I wonder why they're so silent today. I wonder why it's so quiet out there at Knicks Nation. I mean, they talked all this smack after game 2, but then in game 3, oof. First of all, the Celtics, dropping the first 2 games, it was egregious beyond how the Celtics lost those 2 games. Obviously, the Celtics, they were up 20 in both games. They blow both leads. Eventually, the Knicks come back, win both games. They're up 2-0 in the series. But the more egregious part, really, to me, is this Celtics team is just so much better than this Knicks team. And right now, this should either be a 2-1 Celtics series lead or at least a 3-0 Celtics series lead, or the other way around, at least a 2-1, maybe a 3-0, if you're looking at it from the Celtics perspective, because that's how much better the Celtics are than the Knicks. Today's game was a statement by the Celtics because this was more of what we saw in the regular season from this matchup. And now the records on the year, 5-2 in 7 games between the Celtics and the Knicks. So the Celtics, in terms of a 7-game series, the data is there, 5-2 for the Celtics this season. But obviously, the Celtics still a long hill to climb in this series. Just looking at the next game, if the Celtics take care of business there, it's 2-2, and this is a best of 3 series. And the Celtics are right back on track. It's just funny how the emotional roller coaster goes in the NBA playoffs. From one moment you think this is going to be a complete crisis to the next. The Celtics, I wouldn't doubt them winning the next 3 games because of how today's game played out. And a big story today was the 3-point shooting. Obviously, the first game, the Celtics shot 15 of 60 from 3-point land. The second game, 10 of 40, 25% in both games. Well, guess what? I mean, they put the 25% together today. The Celtics did, shooting 50% from 3, 20 of 40 on the afternoon. They started out 11 of 17, 12 of 19. So the Celtics were hot early, and they sustained that hot shooting throughout the entirety of the game. And obviously some of that is just variance from the first 2 games. The Celtics just couldn't make shots down the stretch. And then today rather, the Celtics did make a lot of those shots. But you look at the creation of these shots, the Celtics get wide open looks. They get good looks. And I thought a big part of how the Celtics got a better looks today was the play of Jason Tatum on the offensive end of the floor. Now, I understand Jason Tatum, he didn't have the most efficient games yet again. He shot 8 of 20, 5 of 9 from 3. That's great. But if you dissect it down to the 2-point attempts, Tatum was 3 of 11 inside the 3-point arc. Tatum has to be more efficient than that when he's attacking specifically this New York Knicks team and throughout the rest of the playoffs, if we're going to talk that far. Tatum today, obviously, though, 22 points on the afternoon, 3 of 11 from 2. That's where Tatum needs to improve. But this is the place in which I thought Tatum really impacted the game and changed the complexity of the game for the Celtics. Even Jaylen Brown as well. 7 assists for Tatum, 5 for Jaylen Brown. Those guys were getting others involved. Obviously, one of those others we'll get to later too, Peyton Pritchard. We don't spoil the player spotlight on the top of the screen anymore, but we'll go ahead and spoil it here. Peyton Pritchard, he's going to be our player spotlight today, and he was absolutely phenomenal in his role with the Celtics. We need to see more of him in this series. I thought coming into this series it would be a big Peyton Pritchard series. It seemed that way in the first half of game 1, and then ever since that first New York comeback, Peyton Pritchard just didn't really get it going. However, in games 2 in the second half of game 1, he didn't score in the second half of game 1. But today, Peyton Pritchard, 8 of 16, 5 of 10, 23 points. But it was guys like Brown and Tatum getting guys like Horford, Pritchard, even Holiday at different moments, Derek White involved in the offense and getting them open shots. And there was just a more comfortable level to the Celtics early on in making that extra pass and being unselfish. I thought, in the first 2 games, the Celtics were very hero ballish at times, especially during that 8-minute scoreless stretch in the fourth quarter of game 2. I mean, it was just hero ball all over the place by Tatum and Brown specifically. Yet today, it seemed like Tatum and Brown, they had more of a methodical feel to themselves. They were kind of exercising their patience a little bit more, and they were making that extra pass, and they were just dissecting the defense for the entirety of the afternoon. And that's really what we needed to see, is those two guys not only get after it in terms of the scoring category. Jaylen Brown had a more efficient day than Jason Tatum. He was 7 of 18 from the field. In terms of scoring, both of those guys, Brown 19 points, Tatum 22. They made it to the free throw line 5 times, but just in terms of their playmaking, that was the biggest thing today. Is not only their scoring. We don't only want to see Brown and Tatum's scoring ability. We want to see their playmaking ability, because specifically when both of those guys are on at the same time, that's when a lot of opportunities can open up for other players who are very talented on the floor for the Celtics. And you mentioned it already, Andrew, but this was a theme to me today in this game. Is the Celtics were on high alert for runs. They were on high alert after the first 2 games. I mean, whatever Joe Mazzulla says in his press conferences, don't listen to the Joe Mazzulla smoke, because, or don't pay attention to it rather, because Joe Mazzulla, he understands the circumstances of what just happened. I was thinking the other day, we're sitting here, we're going, we blew 2 20-point leads in 2 games. Like, we should have had those games. I'm thinking Joe Mazzulla has to be thinking the same thing right now. He's not an idiot. He's not sitting back going, oh, well, we just took the attempts we wanted to, and shots didn't go down. It's like, no, he's mad about it. He's pissed about it. He's definitely strategizing behind the scenes with the coaching staff in order to prevent this from happening. What happened in games 1 and 2? Again, he wanted to prevent that. And today, it was the cutting off of the oxygen from both the Madison Square Garden crowd and the New York Knicks when they were on their runs. I mean, the perfect example was the Celtics go up 22 with about 3 to 4 minutes left in the first half, and the Knicks, they go on a mini 5-0 run, cut it to 17, and Joe Mazzulla, no hesitancy in the world, boom, timeout. And that was the end of the run. The Celtics go back up by 22 yet again. They go back up by 25 before halftime. And at that moment, there were, like, right before the halftime period, there were a couple of moments where the Celtics lead went from 22, 23 back down to 17. And you felt like, ooh, if the Knicks get this to 15 or even 13, they're right back in this game. Well, the Celtics, they went the other way. They were up 25 when the halftime period rolled around, and they really built that lead, obviously, near the end of the half by just executing, scoring the ball, and getting stops on the other end of the floor. And that was so big. I mean, Joe's ability to call timeouts today, for whatever we want to say about Joe Mazzulla, and he lets his players play through it, and he has a timeout problem, blah, blah, blah. Today's game was in contrast to the timeout problem. Today's game was a masterclass when it came to calling timeouts for Joe Mazzulla, because I felt like he called them at all the right moments. The team was on high alert. It would be an 8-0 Knicks run, boom, timeout. 5-0 Knicks run, boom, timeout. And there were moments where he felt like the crowd was getting back into the game, and the Celtics, they couldn't quite get their offense going, and the Knicks were a little hot. And in all those moments, Joe Mazzulla, bam, timeout, killed the run. And what was so important off those timeouts, too, is the Celtics' ability to actually execute off of the timeouts. We saw a couple of timeouts in game 2 that ended at the end of the timeout. The Celtics either turned the ball over, took a terrible shot. Obviously, I mean, they would have been on offense, but after that, transpiring, just allowing transition points for the Knicks. There was a stretch, I believe, in game 2 where the Celtics, might have been in game 1, but game 2 and game 1, they feel very similar, very similar feels. But in one of those games, you had in the fourth quarter, clearly the Knicks are on a run. I believe it was an 8-point game at this point in time. Celtics come out of the timeout, immediately give the ball up to the Knicks. It's a transition dunk. It's a 6-point game. And then you're going, all right, that timeout killed the run, but because we didn't execute off of the timeout, the run has now re-sparked immediately. I felt like the Celtics today, there were a lot of reflection moments where the Celtics won this game, where you're thinking, oh, if the Knicks, if they get a stop and a bucket here, they're right back in this game, and their crowd is on an up tempo right now. I felt like the Celtics, there were a lot of moments today where they won those reflection moments, where instead of the Knicks getting a stop and an extra bucket, it was boom, Celtics 3, or it was boom, Celtics execute, they get a stop, get a bucket at the other end. And I felt like there were a lot of those moments in today's game that were not present in games 1 and 2. Games 1 and 2, it felt like the opposite. It felt like the Knicks, all of those reflection moments, it just went further down the line for the Knicks. And this game today, it felt like the Celtics were winning all of those moments. As we can see here in this lead tracker, biggest lead of the night, 31 for the Boston Celtics, 0 for the New York Knicks. So the Knicks, it was tied once there. You can see at the first quarter of this game, tied once. However, after that point, the Celtics lead the entirety of the game. They lead by as many as 31 points. They've never really relinquished that lead. Obviously, it was cut a little bit there in the fourth quarter, but nothing really huge to note. There were about 10 points cut off the lead, but the Celtics still were maintaining a 20 to 25 point lead at that point in time. You probably want to see that get a little better as the Celtics move along, because let's face it, it was only a 20-point lead. That could have been down to 10, and then that just opens up Pandora's box for pretty much anything to happen for this Celtics team. But ultimately, you also see in this lead tracker the Celtics' ability to get stops today. I think that was so crucial in this game. The Celtics just were able to get after it on the defensive end of the floor. I thought they were super active. I thought they were coming up with a lot of deflections, making things tough on the New York Knicks. And it's indicative in this lead tracker a little bit to see the Knicks never really cut in to that Celtics lead. We obviously just discussed, some of that fourth quarter dwindling, but you never see a big bite, right? We see those big bites in the lead tracker. There's no big bite in here. You see a little snippet here and there, a little chewing off the lead here and there, but it was nothing too big for the New York Knicks. And I thought that had a lot to do with the Celtics defense, but also just their ability to execute on the offensive end of the floor. But just examining that lead tracker, Andrew, what did you feel like the Celtics did particularly well today that they didn't do in games 1 and 2 that they actually did do in game 3 to achieve this huge win and to achieve what that lead tracker showed us?
Yeah. I kind of touched upon it already, but I'd say you mentioned it, like the ability to execute on the offensive end and not get lulled into taking a one-on-one opportunity. Like the Celtics went to that double screening action at the top of the key, like almost the entire game. And they had reads out of it every time, whether it was a slip, whether it was a pop hitting Horford for the 3. And then if they close out, you get a swing to the corner, right? So it's like, how can we slow down the game, get to that action every time, and like pick apart the Knicks rather than kind of speeding it up and letting the Knicks kind of, not have to play defensive possessions, because that's a big one. That's a big thing too. I think the Celtics shooting early shots in the shot clock, long threes, like it kind of doesn't make the Knicks have to work on the defensive end, and then it lets them on the offensive end get easier buckets. So our ability to just execute and really not let the Knicks kind of disrupt us and just continue to go back to that look every single time, I think that was super important because and it's also like the ball is energy, right? Like you want to move the ball. Like my coach used that all the time. You want to move the ball. You want to get swings. You want paint touches. You want kickouts. You want like the ball to move in different ways rather than just getting stagnant. And I think being able to do that allowed us to kind of maintain the lead. Like you said, it was more methodic, right? It felt like we were picking apart the defense rather than just kind of playing willy-nilly and just attacking
without frantically and hectically.
Yeah, without
frantically and hectically. It was like the first 2 games we would go on. We would there would be an offensive possession and we'd need a bucket, and it felt like it was like so rushed, and that's what I think even too. Like it affected the ability to actually make shots as well, because not only was the entire play rushed, it's like once that ball hits somebody's hands, it's like they just feel like, oh, I gotta put this up right away, and that energy was just. I don't want to say like you never want to have. I mean, I guess I should say in basketball there is a such thing as having too much energy. Now I wouldn't pin that solely on the Celtics. Like that's the reason why their offense was bad in games 1 and 2, because they had too much energy. At times they didn't have enough, but that aspect of just being too frantic, being too hectic, being too rushed on the offensive end of the floor, it certainly affects the Celtics' ability to not only create shots but hit them too. And I thought we saw a lot of that in games 1 and 2 that we didn't see tonight.
Yeah, I just think like you didn't just slowing down and not playing into the Knicks wanted to siege up on defense. They want to make you You make it hard, and I think we kind of played our game today. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we let the Knicks make us, like you said, speed up on the offensive end and all that. Like, we played our game today, so it allowed us to control the game and really manipulate the Knicks and put them in those disadvantages. Because you can't find the mismatches, and you can't attack them and make them, place them out of rotation without getting a couple swings of the ball, without kind of setting a screen and bouncing out and having patience. I think patience was really, really important today. And I think that's why we didn't see those big swings and runs from both sides of the Knicks and the Celtics.
Yeah, and I just think too, like there were, if you really, okay, so today's game, in my mind, at the beginning of it, I felt like the Celtics, their energy was a bit questionable. Felt like the Knicks had more activity, but we talked about the Celtics slowing down the game a
I
little
won't lie.
bit.
Yeah, the Garden definitely, like at the beginning, I was like, hey man, the TD Garden's got to step it up, because those guys were that building was like, whew,
Yeah, I was a little worried. I mean, I was a
rocking.
little worried there for a second because it felt like, the first defensive possession, Jason Tatum, he kind of, the closeout was a little slow and I think he allowed Brunson to drive by him, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, on
there's a
that
couple
first
plays,
possession.
couple
But he
miscommunication.
came up with a big steal on the same possession though, right afterwards. And I felt like after that, it sort of set the tone for the Celtics activity on the
It
defensive end
disappeared.
of the
Yeah,
floor throughout the day. And it's funny because there's this fine line with the Celtics offense and how they play ball, with being way too slow in moments in which the other team is coming back, their opponent's coming back when you need a bucket, playing a little bit too slow there, but then also not wanting to rush throughout the majority of the game. Because tonight's game, I felt like the Celtics 100% played at their pace. But I also felt like down the stretch, there were a couple of moments where the Celtics were starting to wane on the line of, ooh, this is almost too slow, to the point where our attacking offense is just not aggressive enough to get a bucket right now. Now
right.
that I will say, in a lot of those moments when I was talking about earlier, the reflection moments within this game, those it felt like the Celtics, they won a lot of those reflection moments, and it didn't get out of hand, right? Like that's what in the game of basketball, and really what the Celtics have been doing this season. What we saw in games 1 and 2, like that shouldn't happen. Like we're kind of talking about it like okay, like yeah, these moments didn't get out of hand, blah blah. But it's like what the Celtics did tonight and today. I keep saying tonight. It's daytime outside. I'm
It's getting
fooling
there. It's
myself
close
right now.
enough,
I'm
man.
like
It's
I'm
close enough.
looking at the sun right now. It's daytime. But in terms of this game, I felt like the moments of reflection. Obviously, the Celtics won, and I just felt like it was normal. I felt like it was more so of a normal type of game from the
Yeah,
Celtics,
it felt like a
and it was almost thought of in a manner of like, oh well, this we were up 31 obviously at a certain point in this game, but we're sitting there every time the Knicks go on just a mini run, which again, it's the game of basketball. It's like this is going to happen. The Knicks are going to score five
right.
straight points. They're going to
It's
score
fun.
six straight points. Like they're going to
Fun not
hit.
overreacting. I think we almost did that, and that was representative in our hucking up shots and hucking up threes, feeling like we had to get it all back in one possession, or we had to match their spark or their run. You know what I mean? When it's just like, slow it down, because we can slow their runs down on the court. We don't even need a timeout. You know what I mean? We can slow it down by slowing down,
See, but I
right?
will say I hate Joe Mazzulla's philosophy of just letting us play
Yeah,
through
I
anything,
get.
because it's fine in the regular season. Go ahead and test guys in the regular season. If you have timeouts in the playoffs, there's really no reason to
Can't take them
be.
home. You can't
Right.
take them
Like
home.
there's really no reason to be sitting there going, "Oh, well, we want to test ourselves for a moment in which we might not have timeouts and we need to play through it at the end of a
I
game."
think
It's
I
like
think we're getting
I feel like
tested.
those are different circumstances. At the end of a
We're
game,
yeah.
it's execution at the end of a game. It's always going to be, in that vicinity of not having a timeout, or needing to go the full court to get a shot off or a bucket, or needing whatever it is in the final moments of a game. Maybe you get a bucket, or maybe you hit a free throw and then you have to defend full court or half court or whatever it is. in that particular scenario. You're always going to have that at the end of games, but
Right.
I don't agree with the moments where we're playing, say, there's 9 minutes left in the fourth, and say the Knicks are on an 8-0 run. I don't agree with playing through that. I don't.
Yeah,
I
it's like
mean, if we have 3, 4 timeouts, sometimes 5 timeouts, if we have that many timeouts, call one, and that's it. Why do we need to? We don't need to be play like. There's no real reason to need to play through those. Like, that's what I don't understand with that Joe Mazzulla philosophy. I understand it can pay dividends down the stretch of games, but again, it's like down the stretch of games are always going to be like that, where you're missing timeouts. And I'm specifically talking really in the last like a minute, 2 minutes of a game, where the last 2 minutes, I mean, it's going to be possession for possession. It's going to be back and forth. And in close, I mean, we just saw it the first two games, close encounters. You have to execute down the
right.
stretch on both ends of the floor to get what you want. And you're just going to face circumstances that are going to be unique to that situation anyway. So when it comes to, say, 8 minutes, 9 minutes in the fourth quarter, or any time the rest of the game, I feel like those moments just, if there's clearly a run coming, like we saw in games 1 and 2, and even in game 3 at certain moments in time, there's no shame in calling a timeout. But I will say the big thing here today, not only with those timeouts, it was the execution outside of the timeouts when the Celtics came out of the
Right.
timeout, because the Celtics, most of the time today, I wish we had a stat on this, because I mean, you can mine numbers out of this, but out of a timeout, it felt like we were scoring every single time.
Right. What's
And
that?
that was the difference between today and then games 1 and 2. Is games 1 and 2, we'd come out of a timeout and it felt like we would just do something that would immediately fuel New York's run. We'd
Right.
either miss a mid-range shot, we'd take a terrible shot,
Complete
we'd turn the
waste of a
ball
timeout.
over.
It's like what did Joe Mazzulla even? Did you guys listen to what Mazzulla said in that timeout? Right. It's like you're
Well,
just
that's
going
where I
back.
think, like, I used to be such a Brad Stevens homer. Like, when people were all up in Brad Stevens' grill for, it's like, I don't know if he's the one that coached this team, but yada yada. In 2020 and 2021, 21, the Celtics went 500. And I'm sitting there going, that is just one of the most frustrating moments as a head coach, because you're saying what you're saying in the timeout. And you're probably, I mean, from a head coach's perspective, I mean, you're not telling your guys to go out there and turn the ball over. You're not telling them
Right.
to go out there and take a bad shot. But then when you see that, I mean, that's one of the most frustrating things as a head coach, because you're going, well, in the timeout, it's like, I feel like I'm drawing up all the right things, saying all the
Yeah.
right things,
But
but
you
then
don't
we're
want
just
to.
not executing. And then
Right.
it goes back on, when people say it in the Brad Stevens era, people will be like, oh, this is a Brad Stevens thing. It's a Brad Stevens. I would always deflect it to, well, Brad Stevens, look at all these other teams who's executed for him, different rosters. Yet this this iteration of the Celtics, obviously not now, but back in 2021, I'm going, well, this team just isn't executing for him. This team just doesn't have the ability to actually carry out
Yeah.
the game plan,
It's
which is
it's not like
put
Mazzulla's
forth.
telling Tatum to go out and ISO ball and put 20 dribbles on the floor and then throw up a shot. I mean, it's not like he's telling him that. It comes down to the players. I will
And I
say.
think the one thing that can be said about Missoula is maybe he's not telling him to do that, but I feel like in some of these situations we've talked about in games 1 and 2, is there only maybe 2 reads on a play, and when one's shut down or two are
Right.
both of them shut
That's
down, it's
fair.
like then it just
Fair.
gets hectic to the point where it's like, oh, we don't have more creative backup
I'd
plans. We
say
don't have
that I
another
agree.
read off this.
Yeah, because it definitely they go to that. I liked, and that's why I liked how they kept going to that double high ball screen. Because you did have some reads off of it, and it kind of put Tatum and Brown and all those guys in an advantageous position. Because like I said it already, but there were so many times where you get that first ball screen, right, and they'll pop out, but then that second one, the Knicks looked like they kind of kept doubling it, and there was just like a nice slip action, and then there's help sides, so then you get a cross court kick or something like that, right? So how can you put Tatum, and that's why he probably had more assists, right? How can you put Tatum in those positions to create, rather than making him stagnant on offense?
Right. And I just think we did a terrible job of that in games 1 and 2, especially down the stretch. I mean, looking at some of the film in those games, especially the last play of game 2, the last play of game 2 is, I mean, I'm sitting there going, we might have won this game. I mean, we could have won that game by 20. Obviously, we could
Yeah,
have won
I
that
mean,
game by 20.
yeah,
But we could have won that game on the last possession if simply the spacing of the floor, like we had White, Horford, and I believe Holiday all in the same corner on that
Yes.
play. And it just allowed the Knicks to swarm Tatum. I mean, you had OG Anunoby, you had Mitchell Robinson, Mikal Bridges comes over and helps off Brown because he's not in the right spot at the end of game one. And then there were just too many of those moments in games 1 and 2 where the positioning on the floor offensively is so off, and it's the same action every single time. It's the high pick and roll every single time
They know it's coming.
in games 1 and 2, and it was just predictable. And the Knicks were able to help off of it with comfortability, just simply because guys weren't in the right spots. I mean, the spacing was just completely atrocious today. I thought we certainly saw those adjustments within the Celtics offense, and I thought the Celtics, just we bring up again just the methodical nature, especially of Tatum and Brown in this game, especially them getting their assist the way they did today. And not only them, is Drew Holiday, and they had 4 assists today. And it was kind of an assist party. I mean, let's see. I'll calculate this for the next segment here. But in terms of assists today, I mean, you had Holiday with 4 assists, Tatum with 7 assists, Brown with 5 assists, and the entire team today, 23 assists on 40 made shots. So actually, you know what? Let's calculate this now. So 23. I mean, it's over 50%.
Yeah.
But to 57.5% assist percentage today for the Celtics. So I mean, that's much better than what we've been seeing. And that's much more to the level of what we want to see and what we saw at the end of the regular season. Today, I thought we that we saw that adjustment on the offensive end of the floor, where you mentioned at the top of the key there. The Celtics, I felt as if there was way more action ran on the offensive end of the floor, and there was a more methodical nature just within attacking the defense and finding the shots that we actually wanted to.
You know what that methodical nature did too for them? They only had 8 turnovers today. I mean, the past games they had more turnovers, right? When you slow down and pick it apart, your passes are easier to make. You know, you're not just driving again, and you're into double teams and driving into, you know, because there's 2 guys in the corner and you're driving into 2 other defenders. Like, there was spacing, there was more opportunities for easier, more simple passes to be made.
I thought too in this game, there were a lot of just simple plays made by the Celtics. Like you saw in games 1 and 2, there were a lot of plays the Celtics confusingly didn't make a play on, and it was a lot of going downhill, going towards the rim, just getting a bucket when the help side wasn't going to come over, and if they were, you're going to have a wide open corner 3. I mean, I think we saw that within a play where Josh Hart was closing out on Drew Holiday, and Holiday, I mean, it felt like Hart was programmed to think, oh, Holiday's just going to jack this 3 up, and instead Holiday pump fakes, puts him in the air, drives straight to the hole. There's nobody meeting him at the rim. And I thought that play exemplified some of the Celtics just essentially slowing it down a little bit and making just, I shouldn't say even slowing it down. That's not even part of slowing down. It's just making better decisions on the offensive end of the floor.
And making better decisions and just reading what the defense was giving them rather than trying to create some crazy play. They simplified their game today. That's what I saw.
Yeah, and there's really no reason for me right now to believe that the Celtics still can't win this series, because if they play this way every game, you're just, I'm sorry, the Knicks.
No,
they're the Knicks. Here's the thing: the Knicks today, it feels like the same out of Towns and Brunson every game. Towns has really not had himself an amazing game this series. Today he was 5 of 18 from the floor. However, he did come up with 21 points. Went to the free throw line 11 times, hit 10 of them. Came up with 15 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds today. So he's very active on the glass. But it feels like you're getting the same thing out of Towns and Brunson each game. And Brunson, he shot 9 of 21 today, 27 points. So still not over the 30-point mark. Quincy's still holding on to that.
Quincy is,
jeez, my goodness. Good call by Quince, though. Jeez. But 6 of 7 from the line for Jalen Brunson today, 9 of 21, 3 of 8 from 3. It feels like Brunson, the theme of him in this series has been very slow starts, not really involved in the game. Then he starts ramping up, makes a couple of big shots, becomes the focal point of the Knicks offense, and ends the game with subpar shooting night, good scoring number, and you think he made an impact down the stretch. That's what each game has felt like for Jalen Brunson. Even tonight's game, it felt like Brunson wasn't very active to start the game. And then once the Knicks, we saw that lead tracker earlier. The Knicks, they did cut a little bit off the Celtics lead.
Yeah.
Now, again, it wasn't a big bite. It wasn't a chunk. It wasn't an immediate slice, but there was some chewing into that lead. And I think some of it had to do with Brunson actually getting more involved in the offense and finding his shot down the stretch of this game, especially in that fourth quarter. He ends up with 27 points, but Towns and Brunson, they just don't seem like forceful offensive presences.
Yeah,
They don't
be a little.
presences.
They can take a back seat sometimes. They're just kind of not,
They
imposing.
seem they kind of float every now and then.
Yes.
They float.
Yeah.
And,
They
and
take a couple
Towns,
plays
it's
off.
not always like Towns. Out of his 5 makes today, I want to say like 2 or 3 were putbacks. So it's
Yeah.
not as if I didn't feel like he was dominant when he got the ball on the offensive end of the floor. And I feel like every time he shoots the ball over the Celtics defense, whether it's Al Horford, Tatum, whoever's guarding him, I don't feel like he's very comfortable
No.
in doing that.
He's
I understand,
flailing. He's flailing his arms. He looks like he's going in and getting bumped around. Like, he just doesn't seem like he's attacking strong. And I like that because that's obviously just.
that's a
I like
testament
that.
to how physical the Celtics
I like
defense has
that
been.
from the
And
Celtics.
right,
Yeah.
and the activity of the Celtics defense, I think that definitely is a point to that.
Yeah.
But Towns and Brunson, my point here is obviously they're your 2 best offensive players if you're the Knicks, but they just don't seem like they don't both have that forceful presence within a game at all times. And it seems like Brunson is like he hasn't really had I should say the last 2 games haven't been good shooting performances for Brunson, and it feels like he's just kind of loading into these games like, okay, I'm ramping up into this game. It doesn't feel like an immediate punch from Brunson. It just feels like a little methodical, okay, he's coming in later in the
Yeah.
game. But see, this is where to me, when coming into the series, shutting down the others. If Brown, just so many Brunson, Christian Brown, Jalen Brown, who knows?
Yeah.
But Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, if they're not being that forceful offensive presence and not giving the Knicks consistent offense throughout a game, and Brunson is only going to go ham in the fourth quarter and late in the third quarter, well, the rest of the Knicks, if they're not giving you anything like they did today, because you had, just think, 23 points out of Josh Hart in game 2, you had 29 points out of OG Anunoby in game 1. Well, today, Anunoby, Hart, and Bridges score a combined 24 points. If those 3 players right there are only going to give you 24 points, and Brunson and Towns aren't going to be consistent offensively, as we haven't really seen them this series do, that's an uphill climb for the New York Knicks. And that's why we said the Celtics clearly had the advantage in the series and why they had so many options over the New York Knicks, especially in terms of mismatches defensively and offensively. Today, 2 points for OG Anunoby, and it was a putback dunk. It came in the second quarter. So he didn't score in the second half, didn't score in the first quarter, scores a putback dunk in that second quarter. OG Anunoby does. Only 2 points. He was a minus 25 today for the Knicks. That is a stark contrast from those 29 points we saw in game 1.
I really
10 points. Go ahead, Andrew.
No, I really think OG Anunoby is really like an X factor for the Knicks. I mean, we already talked about it, but I don't know. He has the ability to score, but it just seems very inconsistent with it. And I think that they need him, and I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I
They
really
need him to be aggressive, and he's just not that every game.
No, he's not.
I just don't understand it. Like, there are moments where Hart and Anunoby, specifically those 2 guys in games 1 and 2, where they're just slashing to the rim. They get the ball, and their first instinct is, I'm going downhill, I'm going to the rim. Didn't really seem like that out of those 2 guys today. And then you go to Mikal Bridges. He shot 6 of 10 from the floor, but he only made 2 threes. Or sorry, he didn't only make 2 threes. He made 0 threes. He only took 2 threes today. And Bridges, he only had 12 points. Josh Hart, 10 points today, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. But Bridges, he's another guy we saw in game 2. In that fourth quarter, I mean, he starts finding his own shot, creating his own shot, and he scores 14 points in that fourth quarter. He turned the game on its head for the New York Knicks in that late portion of that game 2. Well, Bridges, Hart, and Anunoby, Where's all that today? Didn't feel like Bridges ever had a moment in this game where he was just creating his own shot, taking over the offense. And that's what I feel like this Knicks team needs out of Bridges at times is when Towns and Brunson, if they're not being all that consistent the entirety of the game, you need that third presence in scoring to go out there and get himself a bucket at a certain moment in time
And just to keep him
when you need
afloat,
it.
you know.
Exactly.
Afloat.
Because if you don't have like that's the missing piece here is that Bridges is supposed to be that piece for this team, and he's
That's why
just
they got
not.
him.
He's
Yeah.
just we saw there's potential for that, obviously. We saw in that fourth quarter of game 2, but then in game 3, there are plenty of moments where Bridges could have broken out and did a little bit more than what he did today. And again, just it's in theme with that with OG Anunoby, Hart, and Bridges today is their aggression, their aggressiveness going to the hole and finding their shot, whoever you're talking about, it just wasn't there. It just
No.
simply wasn't there. And they're almost like figurines out on the offensive end of
Yeah.
the floor where they're just
And when they're
standing
not,
there.
yeah, and when
And
they're
it's
not
confusing.
doing that, when they're not doing that, it also really impacts Towns or Brunson or just the offense in general, just the flow of it, because it just lets other defenders lets the Celtics kind of sag off and play in the gaps and kind of, they're not knocking down threes. They're not, so the Boston can kind of collapse and kind of keep an eye on Towns, keep an eye on Brunson. I mean, you saw Towns, he's getting harassed. He's not getting necessarily fouled, but he's getting harassed down in the paint, right? So it's like, because we have the ability to send these guys in because the other offensive players aren't being aggressive, so it really just impacts the Knicks offensive game as a whole.
Yeah, certainly. And just the Knicks in general, I mean, it's disappointing the Celtics aren't up 3-0 in this series right now because that is the discrepancy we're talking about. Coming into this series, we're thinking, oh, the Knicks, they can steal a game, maybe they could steal 2 games. Obviously, they've already stolen 2 games, I should say, in this series. But you just watch what we did out on the floor today, and it was much more on par with what we saw the entire regular season out of these 2 teams. And just it felt
Right.
like it felt like the same Celtics performance that we saw in games 1 and 2. Okay, I will say this: games 1 and 2 did not shoot particularly well the entirety of those games, but it felt today like the first halves of those games where we're building the lead, keeping the lead, and we're a little bit more of the aggressive team and showing that, well, obviously more so to the talented team as well. Today, the different the today's game, aside from the first 2 games, what was so different is the Celtics 3-point shooting was never off at any moment in this game. It felt like the Celtics were always shooting well, no matter what point of the game we were at. I mean, it was 20 of 40 from the 3-point line for the C's, contrast to 10 of 40 from last game. But in terms of the Celtics grabbing that lead and keeping it, the Celtics, they grabbed those first 2 20-point leads in games 1 and 2. Today, they grabbed that 22-point lead early on. It balloons to 31. And then the rest of the game, it just feels like this is what the Celtics are supposed to do in this series. They're supposed to continuously keep these leads, keep adding on to these leads. And obviously during those moments too, it's just being able to execute on both ends of the floor without allowing an avalanche to fall on yourself in those moments. And today, give credit to the Celtics. This was not an easy environment, an easy opportunity for the C's. I mean, this was an early Saturday day game at MSG against the New York Knicks, who were playing with all the confidence in the world coming into this game. I mean, you're up 0-2 in a series. To me, after that game too, I was thinking, well, the Knicks, they have confidence they can win pretty well any style of game. If they're down 20, if they're up 10, it doesn't matter. They're going to have confidence they can win the game because we just saw them, the Celtics blow 2 20-point leads. But today, I mean, it just felt like a lot of that confidence was potentially sucked out of the Knicks from the Celtics today. And just because of the way the Celtics were able to attack early on, their ability to get their, what they called on the broadcast, the Celtics 3-point mojo. The Celtics got their 3-point mojo back in this one, shot 50% from 3-point land. And it felt like, too, the 3-point shooting for the Celtics felt like some of that variance was coming back towards the Celtics. Felt like we just saw some bad luck in games 1 and 2 now, where there's some terrible huck it up rush shots in there, no doubt. no doubt. However, just to
But you,
miss all of those threes, I mean, we set a playoff record for most missed threes in a span of 2 games,
right, it
and we came
happened.
in third for the most missed threes in a game for game one in the playoffs. And actually, no, that was for all time NBA history. That was third
That
most
was,
threes
yeah.
made in a game, all time playoffs, regular season. So some of that is bad luck. And
Shooters
we
have
saw the
lulls.
Celtics, that luck turn towards them today
Yeah,
a little bit more.
shooters have lulls, teams have lulls, and it happens, But the Celtics' ability to stick with it, and stay to their game plan is important. And we saw that, like you said, in that play with um Hart closing out on Holiday, right? Like they thought he was gonna shoot a three, and he had a drive, and he had a lane, right? So the Celtics are gonna stick to their guns, and they're gonna die by it, man. It's just how it is, and there's no turn back now.
For certain. And one of those players who just affected the Celtics in such a massive, massive way today was Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard, our SeatGeek player spotlight. Now, guys, SeatGeek, if you use our code Celtics Weekly at your first purchase, your first checkout of your first purchase at SeatGeek, you will receive $20 off your first purchase as you see it going past the bottom of the screen right now. Use code Celtics Weekly at checkout for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Perfect time of year to be using SeatGeek and SeatGeek.com because we know the NBA playoffs, they're in full force. And of course, the baseball season, that is as well. NHL playoffs, got to give them a shout out. And then eventually football's back in September. So SeatGeek, they're always out there, always have us. They always have us covered out here. Everyone go check out SeatGeek for some of the best ticketing prices in sports. But not only does SeatGeek have us covered here for seats, they have us covered for player spotlight. And that player spotlight tonight shines on Peyton Pritchard because Peyton Pritchard, this was the type of Peyton Pritchard game in which I expected to see within this series. 23 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists for P, 1 steal as well, 8 of 16 from the floor, 50% shooting there, and 50% shooting from the 3-point line, 5 of 10. Peyton Pritchard hit some big shots in this game, and yet again was a spark plug to the Celtics offense off the bench. And it felt like when Peyton Pritchard came into the game, there was no lack of confidence in Peyton Pritchard, as there never is. I will say Peyton Pritchard, he's always a very confident player out there, but he was ready for this matchup. He was ready for this showdown today. Peyton Pritchard came out to play, but Andrew, looking at Peyton Pritchard's performance today, we didn't see this in games 1 and 2. We thought in game 1 we were going to see it. 13 points in the first half. He was on player spotlight radar at halftime, but didn't score in the second half. Didn't quite come out with a great game 2 either. But today comes out with a 23-point performance in such a big way off the bench on the MSG floor in a must-win game 3 for the Celtics. Andrew, what did you like about Peyton Pritchard's performance today?
Yeah, I liked Peyton Pritchard's. I thought I liked this. I liked his shot selection. Like I thought he took great shot attempts, whether it was from swings or just he took wide open shots, and it kind of allowed him to flow into this performance. I also think just kind of the offensive charge he took. He just felt like he was really taking charge on the offensive end and stepping into his own. I thought he was a little more timid kind of in those other games, whether it was the first 2 games, right? But I thought he really found a way to insert himself into the offense and perform. And then also just the Celtics' ability to move the ball and kind of create. He gave Pritchard the opportunity to have more open shots, to have more opportunities to find success. So I think Pritchard's success is also kind of like a byproduct of the Celtics as a whole, just finding a way to just play offense together as a team. And I think we find Pritchard excels in those opportunities.
Yeah, Pritchard is a player in which should be 100% more involved in this series than he's been, because I came into the series thinking, you know what, this is a Peyton Pritchard series. I mean, you have Jalen Brunson out there. You have if Campaign was taken out of the rotation today, but Miles McBride, Campaign, Jalen Brunson, all 3 of those guys out there. I'm sorry, those are matchups for Peyton Pritchard because defensively, you don't feel bad about putting Peyton Pritchard on any one of those guys, especially Miles McBride. If he's out there, he's a pure defensive player offensively. I mean, I'm just not a Miles McBride just does not have a lot of offensive skill. He's a great driver, he's a great cutter, but outside of that, he's not going to be somebody who's playmaking for others or even hitting shots. It's very limited on that end. But if you have McBride, Brunson, or Campaign out there, Peyton Pritchard should be out on the floor attacking on the offensive end of the floor because offensively, Peyton Pritchard can be especially. I mean, we've seen it this season. We've seen it multiple times this season. He can be a special offensive player for the Celtics with his ability to make shots and play within this Celtics offense because this Celtics offense, we know it centers on Brown and Tatum. Those are the two guys, and they make each other great, but they also make everybody around them great because of all of the attention that's cast on Brown and Tatum. Brown and Tatum, I mean, just think Tatum is a force in his own right. I mean, if you're just talking about Jason Tatum, he is a force in his own right. But then you also have Jaylen Brown to worry about in these circumstances. Well, then all of a sudden, I mean, those are two guys you really have to worry about on the offensive end of the floor. All of a sudden, if Peyton Pritchard is out there, I mean, he's your third guy who can create his own shot. Obviously, he can hit catch and shoot threes. He can hit pull up threes, but he can also create his own shot and even at times create for others. And Peyton Pritchard to be within that offense, that is what propels Peyton Pritchard's game is not only himself and his own ability, but just within the ecosystem he plays in, the environment he plays in. Brown and Tatum, if they're the focal points of the offense, there's going to be a ton of space on the floor for Peyton Pritchard to go out there and do his thing. That's why I think we saw ultimately against the Magic. It was game 80 of the season, the regular season. Only Peyton. It was the top six were out. So no Horford and the rest of the starting lineup, Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday, they were all out, right? That was the top six. They were all out for that Orlando Magic game. Peyton Pritchard became the focal point of the offense. And then what happened? The entire defense of the Magic swarmed Peyton Pritchard, hounded Peyton Pritchard, and he had a tough game. Well, that's because he was the focal point of the offense and he wasn't necessarily ready to be that at that moment in time, especially with his supporting cast around, Shireman, Hauser, whoever that game. But in this system with Brown and Tatum specifically on the floor at the same time, and obviously you have Derek White or Drew Holiday out there as well, or even Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, whoever it's going to be within the rotations, to be on that team, to be in that offense, if you're Peyton Pritchard, I mean, this is why he thrives. He has so much space to attack on the offensive end of the floor, especially when it comes to his pull-up shots. When he gets the ball, he's often looking at somebody who is rotating over to himself and not just focusing on himself defensively. And he often gets a lot of steps on those players and just finds a shot. I mean, he is so good at getting to his spot and getting up his shot. He's such a shifty, crafty player. And today, I just thought there were a ton of moments where Peyton Pritchard came into the game and just hit big shot after big shot after big shot. And there were a lot of moments where I felt like his shot making presence saved the game for the Celtics. We talked about those reflection moments early on in this broadcast. Well, part of that was Peyton Pritchard. You know, the Celtics, they won it as a team, winning some of the deflections, winning some of the could be turnover moments. And they did it as a team, no doubt. But Peyton Pritchard, he had a lot of hand in that too on the offensive end of the floor, just within his ability to make shots out there. So I thought Peyton Pritchard, I mean, he just had an absolutely excellent game on the MSG floor. And it was nothing different from what we saw a couple months ago at MSG back in February, where alongside Jason Tatum has a 40-point night, and Peyton Pritchard, he comes up alongside Jason Tatum and he puts up a 25-point night himself. Tonight, Peyton Pritchard, 23 points for the Boston Celtics, and this comes in. I mean, come on. The whole season we're talking about Peyton Pritchard, sixth man of the year. We knew he was going to win the award. But to do this in the playoffs in such a crucial moment, to be this type of Peyton Pritchard in the NBA playoffs in a game 3 where you're staring an 0-3 deficit in the face on the road in front of the MSG home crowd, I mean, that is big time for Pritchard. And that is big time for the Celtics, knowing you have this guy on your roster for the foreseeable future at such a great, I mean, not for Peyton Pritchard, but for the Celtics, a great price tag. I mean, I think we all know Peyton Pritchard maybe is worth a little bit more than what his salary is right now. But I mean, if you have this guy on your roster, I mean, that is just that is real big time because we've talked about things in the regular season before, just with Celtics teams of the past that come playoff time, we never really see transpire. Well, Peyton Pritchard, there were moments, and obviously the first two games we're going, Peyton Pritchard, he's supposed to be our guy off the bench who comes in and he's that spark plug. He was only 3 of 9 in game two. Well, in game three, when the moment is so big on the road, Peyton Pritchard comes out 23 points tonight for the Boston Celtics, and
And
he
two
just
offensive
gets the job done.
and
Yeah,
two
two
offensive rebounds. And
offensive
people and do not
yeah.
underestimate the importance of offensive rebounds in a basketball game and how much that helps, momentum, especially from a guy like Payne Pritchard. Like that gets the bench fired up. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's also debilitating to a Knicks team when they're looking at each other like, how do we just let Payne Pritchard, 5'11", 6-foot guy, get rebounds amongst the trees? It's like that's debilitating to a team. So Pritchard just brings it on every single facet of the game. And there's a reason he's successful, but there's a reason why the Celtics play better today is just because we had more of that fight in us, and let's attribute it to Pritchard.
100%. Peyton Pritchard was phenomenal today, and he's been that presence for the Celtics for most of the season. And that activity, you talked about why offensive rebounding is so important, also highlights the defensive rebounding importance, where if you're not getting after it on the defensive boards, well, you're not doing the last step of a defensive possession. I mean, a defensive possession, you do every single thing right and not get the rebound, and then all of a sudden it just resets back again, and that's just so debilitating to a team. Obviously, when their opponent grabbing offensive rebounds, we saw that a lot though in games 1 and 2 from the Knicks. Finally tonight, it seemed to fall more in the Celtics' favor. Now, I will say, offensive rebounding wise, the Celtics 12 offensive rebounds tonight. For the Knicks, okay, 17.
They had 17.
So they actually, but I will say Towns and Mitchell Robinson, they had 11 of those 17 on the night. And then in terms of offensive rebounding for the Celtics, 3 for Horford, 3 for Derek White, 2 for Pritchard, 2 for Cornette. So I mean, basically you're the normal offensive rebounding crew for the Celtics tonight. But one of those names was Mr. Al Horford, I mean, come on, age 38, Al. This man never left his prime. This man absolutely never left his prime. Al Horford tonight. Look at this. We have a tweet here from our guy, Daniel Donabedian. Following his 194th postseason appearance, Al Horford has now played the 11th most playoff games in NBA history. I believe we circled back around on this stat. So this is actually, I should say, a circle back around on this stat from a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago, we highlighted, well, it was against the Magic, I should say. So what, a week and a half ago, maybe. Al Horford, he was 13th on this list, if I'm not mistaken. So now Al Horford is 11th, moving up the chain here in terms of playoff games played. Some names in front of him: LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Kareem, Tony Parker, Kobe Bryant, Manu Ginobili, Shaq, and Scottie Pippen. There's a couple more names on that list, but just some notable ones right there. So Al Horford, he just continues to produce for the Boston Celtics. He's reaching Tom Brady, LeBron James levels right now. I don't think this man will ever. I don't think he'll ever break down. I'm just convinced he's going to be playing basketball until his wife just threatens him to get off the court, because I mean, come on, this man is just such a productive player for the season. And even today, Al Horford, yet again, Al Horford today, 3 of 4 from 3. So none of that 2 of 11 nonsense we saw in game 2 from Al Horford. 3 of 4 from 3, 6 of 9 from the floor, scores 15 points, grabs 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks for Al Horford. And I just felt like this is one that you don't even have to look at the stat sheet to know Al Horford's impact. When KP, we'll talk about him in a moment, because I don't know what's going on with him, but 1853 played for KP. I mean, he's clearly not healthy. I can't really. They can't pinpoint what the illness is. Joe Mazzulla has no idea. It's we'll bring that up. Well, I should say we'll bring that up a little bit later. But when Porzingis is giving you the production in which he is right now, which is almost negative production, I wouldn't say it's completely negative, but It's
Definitely rim
Porzingis isn't giving
protection.
you much. The first obviously missed the first half of game one. Game two only plays 14 minutes tonight. Only plays 19 minutes. But when Porzingis isn't giving you the production which you typically expect out of Porzingis if you're the Celtics, for Al Horford to come in to a playoff game, play 34 minutes, 34 and a half minutes, and just play his role to a perfect T, specifically on the defensive end of the floor. Al Horford, I don't know what is going on with that muscle milk. I don't know what goes into it. I don't know what they make it out of. But
Oh,
Al
man
Horford on the
strength.
defensive end of the floor, I can't believe how good he is. I simply can't believe how well he plays on that end of the floor and how athletic and how agile he can be on the defensive end of the floor. And a lot of it obviously goes to just general positioning on that end of the floor by Al Horford. He's been around the block since what,
Right.
2007? I mean, he was in the 2007 NBA draft, 2008 NBA draft. He's been around the block, obviously. There's a lot of experience up here for Al Horford, but just his general ability, his physicality, his athleticism, it's something otherworldly to watch knowing his age and especially knowing the history of basketball players at that age. I mean, typically they're breaking down at
Yeah.
this point in time and they're, Al Horford, you'd expect him at this point. If you were to sign the Celtics signed him as a 30-year-old in 2016. That deal was questioned in 2016 going, I don't know, like by the end of this 4-year deal, is he going to be that productive? I don't know. Well, forget that. I mean, 9 years later, Al Horford, he is starting and playing 34 and a half minutes in a must-win game, a must-win playoff game at MSG in front of the Knicks home crowd, and he plays again his role to a T. Now, again, the stat sheet, I mean, he's just efficient stat sheet today: 15 points, 9 rebounds, 6 defensive rebounds, and I mentioned earlier 3 offensive rebounds for Al Horford, 1 assist, 2 blocks, no turnovers, 6 of 9. So it's not like the stat sheet jumps out to you, but just the fact that his presence on the floor is there defensively for the Celtics, and he can hit shots offensively if he needs to. Um, Al Horford to be producing at this level with Kristaps Porzingis not producing at the level in which we expect him to be at, and to produce at this point in time, his age 38 in 2025 in a must-win game. Al Horford, this is something spectacular. It needs to be highlighted. I know he's not the most popular athlete in the world, but this is certainly something that deserves a headline and a storyline. Is how well Al Horford did play tonight for the Celtics, because in game two, I was going to say had been playing for the Celtics, but let's face it, didn't have the greatest game two in the world whatsoever. Game two, Al Horford comes out, shoots 2 of 11 from three. And after that game, I mean, the whole world is against Al Horford. And, oh, we should see him less Horford, more Cornette. And Horford, he's looking like his old self. He can't hit a shot out there and yada, yada. Al Horford, I mean, this is a veteran type of game from Al Horford where he just comes out today, plays his role, does his job, is in all the right spots, I mean, he's not jacking up the ball every possession. And I would say today, the Celtics were more inclined to make that extra pass just in general. But also, I felt like just from a 3-point perspective, the if you look at the attempts, much more spread out. Just going on this point today, much more spread out for the C's today. Brown 6 3-point attempts, Tatum 9 3-point attempts. Some of those were just, I mean, Tatum, even some of the ones that he made, I will say, some of them are just oof. They're rough
Yeah.
shots. You'll see 6 of 9, or sorry, you'll see 5 of 9 from three from Tatum and go, ooh, a great 3-point shooting game. It's like, ooh, some of those 5 makes were just
Yeah, a lot of
terrible,
them,
terrible shots.
if they're not makes, you're like, dude, what are you shoot? Like, this is not the time to shoot that shot.
And we saw that though in games 1 and 2 where he shot 5 of 20. What was he, 5 of 20 from three? I believe he was 5 of 20.
So that
I feel like that was the number, right? You get all these numbers mixed up. Brown, how terrible Brown was, how terrible Tatum was, how terrible both of them were together, how terrible the team was together. I mean, you mix all these numbers
all
up.
you need to know is he didn't shoot the ball very well. That's
I mean,
okay.
terribly. But just looking at the 3-point attempts, Al Horford 4 tonight, Holiday 3, White 6, Pritchard 10, Kristaps 2. He only played 19 minutes. But just a little more spread out in terms of the 3-point attempts for the Celtics tonight. And Al Horford, you didn't see him jacking up 11 attempts. So that was good for the offense just to have just to see everybody involved. But just talking on the point of Al Horford right now, his game is I can't explain it. Again, it's the only thing I can say is muscle milk. That's the I don't even know if he even has an active sponsorship with them anymore. But I'm telling you, this man is just absolutely incredible. And again, his stat line isn't going to pop out to anybody, but what he was able to do on the defensive end of the floor today, and just what he was able to do in terms of playing his role, absolutely phenomenal for Al Horford. But Andrew, from your perspective, what just happened? What? What? The StreamYard literally just glitched and went crazy. What? that was very random. Yeah, I know. I wasn't touched. No, nobody touched anything. We were.
I thought we might have had a special.
I don't know what happened.
I thought we might have
that
had
wasn't
a
even the background. The background that popped up. That's not even the background that we have right now. It's because Griffin's in here because he didn't have any idea.
I told you. I said I thought we might have had a special guest. I was about to finish. There we go.
Listen,
Griffin Aldrich.
I appreciate the intro. It wasn't even predicted. Just got out of work. I won't be on here long. I gotta get some food in me. But what about that? Celtics win?
Wait, you gotta. That is the lucky. What do you even call that shirt? That's like the neon, the lucky neon. What do you call that? You look like a Busch Stadium vendor right now. That's the Busch Stadium vendor shirt.
You guys want to see what's underneath though? I don't know if you guys could tell, but like
I don't know, man. I don't know.
We
got I don't know, bro. No.
Look, we got the good luck base.
Whoa, that's actually pretty cool.
Always representing. Always.
Even at work, I'm representing. We got to.
Respect.
I'm always afraid of copyright on this program. Just now, I was like, I'm in full force afraid of nudity right now. Straight up. I was like, I don't know, like the belt's coming off. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Whoa. We got the good luck facing Jason shirt. I think I'm ready. I'm ready.
That's a pretty cool shirt, I will say. I didn't know they made those.
Yeah,
whoever they is.
That? All right, listen, I haven't been here for long because obviously I've been at work. But how about that Celtics win? Let's go.
Big time. What's your perspective?
Yeah.
Let us know.
All right, I'm going to give you guys the perspective of not watching the game because I did not watch a single second. I actually I did watch a second. It's when it said final. I walked into the ticket office and saw it. But I think ultimately, my initial thoughts from this Celtics win is it was much needed. I mean, today was where the Celtics could potentially, it's not facing elimination, but if they lost this game 3, the series is over. But getting that win, that brings some life into it. The series is far from over now. And I think I said this the other day, I think these 2 wins at Madison Square Garden, these 2 games at Madison Square Garden are much needed wins. You need to win both of them. The Celtics can't go down 3-1. So it's time to bring this series back. It's time to tie it all up. And I looked at this throughout the game. I kept checking the score, and I did not feel comfortable the whole time when we had that lead. I'm like, all right, I won't feel comfortable till we're up by 50, and there's a minute left in the fourth quarter. And every time they were like, oh, well, they're doing good right now. And I'm like, wait, I can't trust it. And that's not how I should feel as a Celtics fan. However, we got the job done today. That's all I got to say.
I can tell you there was 2:41 left in the fourth quarter until I really felt confident. Like there 2:41 left.
No,
when I saw Landry Shaman out there, when I saw all the Knicks reserve guys out there, I'm going, okay, we got this. Like before that point, I'm going, all right, just it's like don't let it go. It's like don't let it get to 19.
And can I say something? And this is what frustrates me. We shouldn't have to do that as a Celtics fan. And that's why I was so frustrated last post-game show, because it's consistency. And I talked about this again. I said it last post-game show too. I said it during the regular season. We need to build good habits because we should be up in the series 3-0 right now. It's undeniable that we should be up in the series 3-0. But that's not the case. And now we're battling back. And all right, I want to hear this from your guys' perspective. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Does it look like the Celtics team is back and we can compete in this series and ultimately win the series? Do you guys have faith in the team now? Because I tell you what, last post game show, I don't know if it was just me, but my faith was little to none right there. Like I was very disappointed. I was hurt after that second loss because again, should be up 3-0 in the series. But where are your guys' thoughts? How did today's game kind of reflect on the rest of the upcoming series?
Well, today you needed to see this win out of the Celtics if you were to if anybody was gonna put faith back into the Celtics, and let's face it, I think some of that faith did escape Celtics Nation, but I will say there was still a grand majority of people still calling out Celtics in 7, Celtics in 6 from the rooftops. But I will say you needed this win if you were to put any faith back into the Celtics today, because first of all, Griffin, you mentioned if you lose this game, and there's no coming back. You need 3-0 in NBA history. That is just a very hard thing to do. I don't doubt a team can't do it one day, but until we see it, you're just not banking on it, right? You're not banking on it. Obviously, to me, the Celtics, the first 2 games, they had 20-point leads in both of them. They had 20-point leads. And in this series, looking at a stat in the series that's just eye-popping to me, quite frankly, is, first of all, wait a minute. Let me calculate these minutes up, because I was calculating them throughout the game, but since we have an end of the game here. So the Celtics this series, right? They've led for nearly 130 minutes this series. 130 minutes. All right, folks, 130 minutes. So what? That's 2 hours? Like, well, almost 130 minutes. So yeah, that's over 2 hours and some change there. The Knicks, on the other hand, well, they've led for 12 minutes this series. 12 minutes the Knicks have led this series. They have a 2-1 series lead over the Celtics. The Celtics have led for 130 minutes this series. You just look at it from that perspective, and it's almost like the Celtics, they never went away. They fumbled those first 2 games down the stretch. They fumbled them in the fourth quarter. They allowed the Knicks to come back. But I did feel like there was a level of, we're still better than this team. We still should be able to compete in each and every one of these games and have the chance to pull it out. Game 4, I'll say this. Game 4 is going to be very dangerous for the Celtics, because now it's like, oh, yeah, we got our mojo back. Oh, we're back to it. But it's like, all right, Game 4. If you don't come out for Game 4, then you're facing elimination at home in Game 5, which is not where you want to be, coming back down from 3-1 if you're the Boston Celtics. But today's game, right now, I feel like the confidence is certainly, you have to put the Celtics at a higher I mean, for me personally, at my confidence level for the Celtics, it's at a higher level than it was after Game 2, obviously, because you could have seen a scenario today where the Celtics come in and completely roll over and go, the season just hasn't worked out. We're tired. We just want to go to Cancun. Like that. We could have seen that out of the Celtics. Instead, we saw a response that was just overwhelming. And I think from that could certainly spark a run now that sees the Celtics win a couple in a row and put the series back in the hands of the Celtics. I think certainly there should be a lot more confidence surrounding this team right now and moving forward, because there's no doubt this should be a 3-0 series. Come on, 20-point leads in the first 2 games. This should be a 3-0 series. Instead, it's 2-1. And in the manner in which it was 2-1, you lose the first 2 games at home. It's a disaster. But hey, say we split at home, we win, and we allow the Knicks to win this Game 3 on the road. Does it look a little like, I always think about that? How do these series go about? Which games did you win and which games did you lose? If we didn't lose those first 2 home games, would the roof be like, say if we're coming in here after Game 3 and the Knicks win Game 3, but they lost Game 2 or they lost Game 1? What is our reaction there? Like, what is our confidence level in the team there? I always kind of try to look at that too within a series. Obviously, we were going full catastrophe mode after they were down 0-2. The Celtics were down 0-2 in the series, but now 2-1, and now the next game in front of us, we're thinking, okay, if we win that, it's a best of 3. And from that standpoint, the Celtics still have the better team in the series, and they should theoretically, just from a probability standpoint, should come out with the series. Obviously, the Celtics have made that very tough on themselves, and it makes me upset, because knowing the margins that come within the playoffs, especially later on in time. I mean, in the finals, it could be a margin of, one team is simply more healthy than another team. One team is more conditioned than another team. It could come down to that margin simply in the NBA Finals. So for the Celtics to drop 2 games in which they should have won, that's what really upsets me. But it doesn't necessarily take away from my belief that the Celtics should win this series, because we saw how dominant they were today. And there's no reason the Celtics can't do that every game. Simply no reason. Simply no reason.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm gonna say my confidence is pretty much back up, because Franco was talking about, like, it almost seemed like the Celtics need a little kick, and now they're coming back, and it seems like they have a little more fire in them. It feels like there's more resemblance of like last year's run, where it's like, now you heard the noise, you heard the haters, you heard the people doubting you, and I almost think the Celtics, and we shouldn't have.
They almost need that.
But the Celtics almost thrive in those scenarios where it's like backs against the wall, we're pissed off, we got to prove something, and we're gonna find a way to win. And it almost seems like today the Celtics showed that in their physicality, in their ability to create turnovers, in their ability to kind of disrupt the Knicks offense. Like, I think the Celtics had this fire in their belly that they didn't have in the previous games, that I feel like is going to hopefully stay for the remainder of this series.
Yeah, and can I say from this win, I will say I don't think all my confidence was gone after game 2, but I was hurt. I was physically upset, angry, and just hurt with the team. But I think getting this game really gives me a lot more confidence. I feel like this now has the potential to be a series. And I do still think the Boston Celtics are going to come out with this series and get the win. But you could obviously see, too, from that Magic series, and I forgot who it was. I think it was our last guest we had on here for the post-game show.
No, see, this was, hold up. Paul Mack should have been on this post-game and not after game. Like, that was the worst. I'm sorry, folks.
gosh.
Game 2 was just all respect to Paul Mack, because game 2 is just the worst time to have a guest on after a Celtics game period, win or loss. I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, come on, that was
It's a tough
rough.
spot, but he was a good sport about it. He was a good
sport. Totally. Shout out to Paul Mack, Cortez Paul. Go check out all their content there.
Yeah, I gotta say, he was right though. The Celtics obviously look banged up, and you could tell that they're out of gas a little bit. But I again didn't get to watch tonight's game. We'll be watching it, but it looks like the Celtics got that gas and firepower, and I don't think they necessarily lost it. I think it's just the bad habits late in the quarters. And what did scare me is because I kept an eye on my phone a little bit, but I noticed when the fourth quarter started a little bit, I was like, oh, I gotta stop looking at my phone, because the Knicks creeped back a little bit. But the Celtics were able to keep their foot on the gas pedal, stop the danger, and that's how you're supposed to close out games. And that's what should have happened the past 2 games, but we're not going to go shoulda, coulda, woulda. We're going to look forward, and we need to keep this intensity going. This is what the Boston Celtics need to do for the rest of this series, because ultimately, you look at it, it should have been a sweep if we keep it up like this. I mean, the Boston Celtics, like you already said, Seamus, have led in a significant amount of this series. It's just the fact that they haven't been able to close it out. So if we keep the intensity up, the Boston Celtics could get this done. But they gotta keep the intensity up, and they gotta close games out. That's how it has to be. They need to close games out.
I have a question, and I don't want to look, too far forward, because they have this in front of them. But it's like, next series, does it scare you? Because they didn't have to execute down the stretch. Like, what happens when they do get in those scenarios? Like, does that scare you?
I think down the stretch, regardless of what we're in the playoffs or not right now, the down the stretch stuff concerns me, just from what we saw in the regular season. And there's 2 ways to look at it. You could go, well, last year they executed perfectly down the stretch of games, playoffs. You think about game 1 against Indiana, game 3 against Indiana, game 4 against Indiana, game 4 in Cleveland. See another one, game 3 in Dallas. So I mean, those games, the relatively close games, and pull those out. everybody's going to remember that 4 run going, 5-game series, 5-game series, 4-game series, 5-game series. Celtics, they dominated throughout their playoff run, but to win those series in 5 games or 4 games, the Celtics did have to pull a couple of games out down the stretch, and just some of the games that I mentioned, they did it to a T last year. And the games in which they lost, the 3 games in which they lost, it wasn't because of down the stretch issues last year in the playoffs. It was because, well, those 3 games, the Celtics were just blown out. I mean, game 2 against Miami, game 2 against Cleveland, game 4 against Dallas. All those games, the Celtics were simply blown out. It wasn't a down the stretch issue. But this season, in the regular season, they turned the wrong corner in terms of their crunch time play. The Celtics did. We saw a lot of moments where the Celtics just were not. They didn't handle the game down the stretch, whether it was within the last 5 minutes of a game, just not being able to go possession for possession with a team like Cleveland or OKC, or we see the little things, the little margins down the stretch where, I mean, really, in the final 2 minutes of a game, when it's possession for possession and you have a lead, it's about inbounding, hitting free throws, and rebounding.
Right.
Inbounding, rebounding, hitting free throws. That's what it's about. Not turning the ball over and not allowing your opponent to take any little advantage of a possession, an extra possession down the stretch. We've seen, especially in those first 2 games, the Celtics, this is what concerns me. If you're the Celtics and you're going up against the Knicks down the stretch, I do feel like the Knicks, those first 2 games, they felt way more confident being in that situation than the Celtics, which is pretty. I mean, looking at that aspect, it's confusing because we're going, okay, this team won a ring last year. They're facing a team who has basically won nothing as a club. I mean, they won 1 first round series last year, a first round series this year. They've won nothing as a club, yet the club who's won seemingly nothing, they have more confidence in their ability to win a game down the stretch than the Celtics. I felt like the Knicks in those first 2 games, they saw easier opportunities, they just had an easier time getting a bucket down the stretch than the Celtics. I mean, that's just what it was. And you can chalk that up to so many different things, but I just think it was being in that situation, being in that part of the game. Sometimes I think some teams, they just might have more nerves than the other team. It might not say anything about their ability for the full game, but just their ability to pull out a game in a crunch time moment. I mean, we think about somebody like James Harden. James Harden in a game 7. I mean, what goes on there? He's fine games 1 through 6, but once he gets through to an elimination game or a game 7, falls off a cliff. It's like, why? Probably because he's scared to shoot. Probably because he's scared to shoot. So it does become sort of a mentality thing between 2 teams, and not just like we talk so much about ability, but mentality has something to do with it too. And I just think the Celtics at certain points, they've lost focus down the stretch of games, especially in the waning moments of games where it's really possession for possession in the final 2 minutes of a game, and they just need to make one inbound. They don't need to they need to not turn the ball over. They need to hit some free throws. They need a rebound. They need a bucket, whatever the circumstance is. Some of those moments the Celtics just have not been good at this season. So I do think it's a little concerning because going forward, you're looking at other teams who might be a little bit better than you in those categories if you're the C's, but that's why it's important to keep a lead throughout a game. If you're the Celtics, obviously, right, just to win the game, but just to not create those moments down the stretch. I mean, that's games 1 and 2. If the Celtics were the better crunch time team, they would have won both of those games. We would have said something about the comeback by the Knicks both times, but if the Celtics win those games, I mean, they're playoff wins. That's the whole point of that. But obviously, I mean, for the Celtics, I think in this series, it's pretty crucial to keep the margin big because you cannot get into a scenario where you're playing crunch time ball with Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks, right, because I think they kind of thrive in that moment. They want that moment down the stretch. I think their mentality is bred for it. But even against other teams, you could say, Minnesota, Anthony Edwards is out there. Golden State, if Steph Curry comes back, and Jimmy Butler, they're just ultra clutch players. Jokic is truly, I mean, he could have won the Clutch Player of the Year award. Everybody, terms Brunson the Clutch Player of the Year, but it could have been Jokic. SGA has been super clutch this season. Was not super clutch last night in game 3 out in Denver, but has been super clutch this season. So you do have a bunch of teams out there. And then on the other end, you have Halliburton and Donovan Mitchell. We all know what they can do. But you do have other clutch teams with clutch players out there. And I will say that it is a concerning point of the Celtics that I just haven't seen. I can look back to last year and go, look, there's good data in the playoffs last year when it means something, when the moment is big, there's good data from last year. But this season, what we've seen this regular season, it's been few and far between. And there's nothing recently that shows me, okay, this team, they're the team bred to pull games out down the stretch. If it's a 5-point game in the final 5 minutes, the Celtics are coming out with this game. I actually feel the opposite about the Celtics right now in that scenario. I feel like the Celtics, there's 5 minutes left in the game. Celtics better have a 15-point lead because the final stretch, I don't necessarily trust this Celtics team right now and during this playoff run down the stretch as much as I did last year's Celtics team in 2024. I do think that's a little bit of a concerning point of the C's right now.
I really quick, you honestly said everything I was gonna say, so I'll just add on to a quick little take you said. I wouldn't feel comfortable unless it's a 25-point lead with 5 minutes left. I tell you, the way they've been playing recently, I can't bash on the team because we got the dub today and we did great, but I'm just saying.
Right, we didn't have to face that today. And that was kind of the theme of the game, is not allowing it to get to that point. Even when we were up, 31 in the third quarter, we're going, okay, if it's 15 by the fourth quarter or something, 20 by the fourth quarter, it's like, all right, we've seen this before.
Yeah, and that's why I just to add on to my initial thoughts too, I was like, geez, I don't know how much of a lead I would feel comfortable with, and was like, oh, all right, well, the Celtics got this one because you guys see how they've been playing, but I can't bash on them. Like, this is a good win. This is positive. We're positive thoughts right now.
Agreed.
We're positive vibes. What about you though?
No, I agree. I think I'll just say it from like I don't know. Shout out my dad. He had an interesting take. Like, it's almost like when you're in the Celtics arena, when you're in the Garden, it's like, I don't know who said it. I think there was I don't know if it was like a ESPN host or something, but he was like, it's almost like when you're in the Garden, you feel that pressure from the home fans too. It's like, what can I do for the fans? You know what I mean? And then you go to the Knicks and you just feel like you got everyone against you. There's nothing to lose. So how can the Celtics continue to kind of just and how can the fans in that moment be like, don't get tense, have trust in the C's, man. You know what I mean? And give them that trust. I don't know. It's an interesting take.
I think the fan base can try to do that in ways. Like, there was a moment where it definitely felt like in game 2, I believe it was like 86, 82, 88, 82, something around like that. The game was in the 80s and it was late fourth quarter. And for a moment, the Knicks, they cut it to 6 and it felt like, it was like, uh-oh, this is not like, this is like, you could just tell from the crowd, you're like, this is not good. But then the crowd kind of they got up and cheered. And I'm like, does that help or hurt? Like, it was like, everybody was like stunned and shocked and going, uh-oh. But then it was like, come on. Like, it was like right afterwards, it was just like cheering. Like, I don't know how, the crowd can, it's weird because that moment I felt like it's like they're trying to uplift the team, but then you're also signaling that this is such a crucial moment now. Like, I don't know how the crowd can, we have such a weird dynamic and relationship now between the TD Garden home crowd and the Celtics team. And we've talked, Franco, he is huge on it. He's huge. It's about the ticket prices and people being allowed into the arena and what type of people the ticket prices currently bring. But it does seem like there's I totally agree with you, Andrew. I feel like when we go on the road, there's like this FU mentality from the Celtics where it's like, we've been here before. Like, y'all think you're gonna win on the road? You think you're winning at home here? Like, oh well, we're about to shut down your home crowd. And then at home, it just feels like it's kind of like a gimmick. Like, oh, we're playing for the fans, and we do this thing. Like, hey, we go up 15, and everybody's going nuts. But we don't have that. We don't have that edge. It's like the edge is not like on the road. The edge is there. It's like, oh yeah, we have a challenge, and that's what sometimes I think. Like, I don't know, Joe Mazzulla. It's like, maybe does that mentality have anything to do with Joe Mazzulla's mentality? Does that have anything to do with the Celtics' home and road record? Knowing It's like, okay, this Celtics team is always met with a challenge because Joe Mazzulla is always trying to throw them challenges and not literal challenges, but just challenges in terms of the game of basketball. But this team loves to be challenged. Joe Mazzulla loves to be challenged. But yet at home, it's like, oh, they thrive in the environment in which they're challenged. But then at home, when they're not challenged, it's like they just kind of fade off into this, oh, well, we don't really feel like the urgency. You can tell the urgency at home is just sometimes never there. It's never there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, sure, the urgency might be there for a quarter or two, and we grab a 15, 20-point lead as we saw in games 1 and 2. But then the urgency doesn't continue itself throughout a game. It's just kind of, oh, ho hum, we've done this yet again.
We're home.
I think there's something to that.
Yeah,
I think there's something to that.
And when the mentality really should be is F you on the road and F you at home. Like, F you, you're not coming in here and taking a win from us on our home court in front of all of our fans, like that's really where it should be. And I think sometimes I agree. They just somewhat just kind of take a seat and just kind of like admire the crowd and the atmosphere and try to and kind of put on.
No, they work for a quarter and a half and then they sit on the bench and they look at the crowd, they look at the jumbotron, they drink Gatorade, they wrap up their knees, they put on their jumpsuits, and they're like, man, this is like we're chilling. Like we're chill. Like, no, I totally understand that from a basketball player's perspective. Is like when you grab a big lead, there is this sense of like, whew, like a sigh, like, oh, we've done what we needed to do. Like, hey, this should be chill. Like, we should be able to pull out this game and a good win. But if you're not playing the full 48 minutes and you do that too early in a game, and you're not attentive to it, I mean, that's where we saw the games 1 and 2. That's where we saw the collapses happen. That's what happens.
You can relax and kick back when you get banner 19, when you get a ring, man, and it's that much more sweet when you just keep your foot on the gas, like Griffin always says, and work hard and give the fans. It's that much more sweet when you can look back at and say, man, we gave every single amount of effort that we could have, and we dug deep every single time, whether it was home or away. I hope Joe Mazzulla listens so he can give that speech to the Celtics.
I gotta say too, Franco with his Marriott takes with the Celtics loving the hotels, but I am gonna have to say goodbye, you guys. I gotta go get some food in me. I just had to make a quick guest appearance because I saw you guys were on. I saw Andrew with the bling bling. I was driving back.
Yeah, can we?
Yes, sir.
Where's that chain?
I can pull that back out.
Yeah, pull it out.
I'm going back.
This is Flavor Flav chain right here. Look at this.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Got that Celtics bling. But I do gotta say, I also love the hat, Andrew. There was a walk-off home run for the Sea Dogs today, so that's why I'm back so early, you guys.
I'm pulling the classic Boston sports fan. You can mix and match when it comes to the Boston team, and you just know that you're part of the squad. You got to. The beauty of Boston sports right there.
It is bleed green. But I'll see you guys soon. And I got to throw it in. We got to do Celtics Nation Rides episode 37 soon. So everyone go check that out as well. Yeah, sure. See you guys. Go Celtics.
Sure. See you later, Griffin. Go Seas, of course, as we always say here. Yeah. As we transition back to the two-man here. Well, I will say, Griffin, great add to the program here today.
Great add.
We have a lot of tweets. I don't know. We've shown them a million tweets on here before, but hey, let's get into some tweets here. We got some quotes from the post-game pressers. Jaylen Brown on dealing with outside noise over the last 72 hours. It's been like that my whole career, so it's really no different. When adversity hits, people tend to get excited or emotional. We just got to stay the course. My job is to come out and help lead this team to wins. So Jaylen Brown, not unfamiliar. Well, I'll remind everybody, Jaylen Brown, his first playoff series ever in the NBA. It was the Bulls versus the Celtics in 2017 in the first round. The Celtics were the number 1 seed. The Bulls were the number 8 seed. The Celtics lost 2 home games to the Chicago Bulls to start that series before winning 4 straight games to close out the series in 6 games in Chicago on the road. I remember I was at game 4. of that series. So Jaylen Brown, when he talks about it's been like that my whole career, he literally means his entire career, his entire NBA playoff career. His first ever playoff series started out with a 2-0 deficit after losing 2 home games at the TD Garden, only for the Celtics to win 4 straight games. Obviously, that was nearly a decade ago and a completely different Celtics team. But Jaylen Brown, he's seen this both from a role player's perspective and being the main focal point of the Celtics and that perspective as well. But we also have more from not only Jaylen Brown tonight, but Jason Tatum. And Jason Tatum tonight, Jason Tatum on his response to criticism, and I believe this was one of the big quotes of the night here. You understand what comes with being that guy. I live a great life. I ain't gonna lie. I make a lot of money. I take care of my family. I've been able to experience a lot of things, but you also have to accept what that comes with. What comes with that, rather. I get a lot of praise. I get a lot of credit. I get a lot of accolades, but I'm not perfect. And there's times where I've needed to play better. I needed to do more. And that's what comes with being that guy. So,
That
certainly
guy,
a quote from Jason Tatum tonight. Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, what do you think? What I think? I mean, I think it shows confidence, and it shows confidence, but then also accountability, right? So it's like, yeah, I'm not playing my best. I need to do better. So it shows the teammates that he understands that, and he understands that what it takes, and that he needs to do better. But then it also shows confidence to his teammates that I'm capable of being that guy, and I can give you good performances, and I can be an all-star and a great player like I am, right? So it gives the fans a confidence, but also just shows that Tatum is not, letting this. And obviously, it's the media, and you're gonna say things to kind of show a different, it's not always going to be exactly where your headspace is at, but I just like the quote, and it doesn't just say, man, I don't care. It shows thought, and it shows that he does in fact care about this team and where the Celtics are.
100%. This is definitely one of the quotes of the night from Jason Tatum here, because it's just taking accountability for who he is in the NBA, on the Boston Celtics, and what his role is with the team and with this franchise. And he understands that, being the guy comes with a lot of great things, but it also comes with a great amount of responsibility. I mean, it's the same quote from what we saw in Spider-Man years ago. Spider-Man, New York guy, maybe a New York Knicks fan. I will say Spider-Man, giving some. I know it's Spider-Man right now. Spider-Man, he's not in good graces with the Celtics, because let's face it, we have Spider-Man in Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell. Spider-Man lives in New York. He's probably a Knicks fan, maybe a Nets fan.
And we
Who
do have a
knows?
Spider-Man. We do have a Spider-Man character as our own. I don't know his name, but he always shows up to the post
At the TD Garden. That is true. That is true.
So
So I guess we have our own Spider-Man. But
Yeah.
I will say the quote from Spider-Man is with great power comes great responsibility, and that is basically what Jason Tatum is saying right here. But we also have another quote from Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum on the criticism of the Celtics shot selection. It's the playoffs. It's the biggest time of year. There's going to be a different narrative essentially after every game. Is that not the truth here? I will say. I've talked about it a lot. Just not riding the emotional roller coaster of a win or a loss. Just understanding that this core group, we've been through a lot of series together, a lot of games, and a lot of moments. So, just in terms of the Celtics and their shot selection and their approach to the game, basically Jason Tatum saying right here, it's like they have an identity. They understand what that identity is, and they're going to go out there and execute to the best of their ability within that identity. And we saw that tonight come out from the Celtics. I mean, after you shoot 25 of 100 from 3-point land, 25 of 100, right? 25 of 100, 25% from 3-point land. The Celtics came out and shot it confidently yet again tonight. I mean, the Celtics came out and it was as if they didn't just shoot 25% for 2 straight games, missing 75 threes in 2 games, the most in NBA playoff history. The Celtics came out and they let it fly tonight. 40 3-point attempts. Tonight they hit 20 of them. But that was just kind of, that just kind of shows the example. And by the way, 40 attempts from three tonight, 43 attempts from two for the Celtics. But that just shows, the Celtics' ability to not wane from what their identity is and understand that, look, we're down 2-0. What we did in the first two games, we played. If we were to grade the games, they were Fs for the Boston Celtics. They understand that. But coming out in game three, it's just about executing that same game plan. Obviously, there are going to be adjustments, as we talked about earlier in the broadcast. But in terms of the philosophy, executing the same philosophy of how you're trying to win a basketball game, the Celtics did that tonight, and you could see on the floor and just in the score the different result, obviously, from games one and games two, and the Celtics not falling away from their typical strategy. But we also have more quotes here. Jaylen Brown. This one coming from Legion Hoops, also at NBA New York. You got to beat us 4 times, not once, not twice, not 3. You got to win 4 games. So hey, little Jaylen Brown, maybe a little LeBron homage right there. I mean, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 times. You have to beat the Boston Celtics, not twice, not twice, 4 times. And this next tweet, maybe we'll get into this here in a second, how concerning this could be for the New York Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns, this one also coming from Legion Hoops. Karl Anthony Towns on if he broke something in his hand today. It is what it is. I'm going to keep finding ways to play, so I ain't tripping. Karl Anthony Towns, I'm going to go ahead and say that answer sounds like he has a broken hand or a broken bone in his hand, a broken finger, or it is what it is. So Karl, so we don't hear the question here, but it was probably something like, "Hey Karl, did you break something in that hand possibly?" And he goes, "It is what it is." I mean, obviously it doesn't seem as if we have real results for what's going on with Karl Anthony Towns' hand yet. However, I don't know, maybe a broken hand for Karl Anthony Towns, that could be something major for the New York Knicks in this series. Who knows? But just looking at that, maybe a little bit of concern there for NY, for the Knicks fan base, knowing Towns and his offensive impact for that team, and just the rebounding aspect of Towns. I mean, he's been a phenomenal rebounder this series on both ends of the floor for the Knicks. If he has a broken hand moving forward, that's certainly some bad news for New York. But other than what we just saw there on screen, a big opponent of Karl Anthony Towns and a big talking point coming into this series was Towns versus Porzingis, the battle of the first and fourth picks in the 2015 NBA draft, facing 10 years later in an Eastern Conference semifinal series as the starting centers. However, Kristaps Porzingis has not started now for the past 2 games, coming off the bench in games 2 and 3. Played 14 minutes in game 2, 19 minutes tonight for Kristaps Porzingis, and didn't play the first half of game 1. There's something going on with KP right now. Seems like it's very definitive that Kristaps Porzingis has an illness certainly attached to him right now. The concerning part of this illness is somehow, some way, the Celtics just have no idea what that illness is. And then let me pull it up here in a second. We'll show you all the quote here from Joe Mazzulla the other day. This didn't come in the post-game presser, but it did come a couple of days ago when Joe Mazzulla was on 98.5 The Sports Hub. But Joe Mazzulla, when he was talking about Kristaps Porzingis while he was being interviewed by 98.5, Joe Mazzulla said this about Kristaps Porzingis. This is what he said. Joe Mazzulla says that they do not know the illness Kristaps Porzingis is dealing with, and it's impacting his fatigue and his breathing. He's hoping 2 days off will help KP. So this is coming from Caleb Burton, but this was when Joe Mazzulla was on 98.5 The Sports Hub in an interview. Joe Mazzulla said this about Kristaps Porzingis, and I can't remember I cannot remember a moment in NBA history where a player has a mysterious illness in March. This is 9 of 10 games, comes back, looks absolutely amazing for about a month, and then exits the lineup again with the same illness, and somehow the illness, an upper respiratory illness, we will add, is just unknown by the Celtics training staff, the medical staff, whoever takes care of Kristaps Porzingis. They just don't know what the illness is whatsoever, and I gotta say, I'm confused too on Kristaps Porzingis. I'm beyond confused because again, 9 of 10 games missed in March with this upper respiratory illness. Comes back, played. I mean, he won 3 player spotlights in a row when he came back. He played phenomenally when he came back into the lineup. And then he misses the first half of game 1 with this illness. Then he comes off the bench, plays 14 minutes in game 2, comes off the bench again, plays 18 minutes in game 3. I feel like if you can play 14 minutes or 18 minutes, you can probably play 20, 25 minutes. It doesn't make any sense to me what's happening with Kristaps Porzingis right now. I don't remember ever seeing this. I would love to hear more about it when the season
I agree.
after we win the title, and maybe something more comes out on this illness than we know up front right now as the public. But this is just a confusing just saga with Kristaps Porzingis right now. He's a player that is so impactful to this Celtics lineup when he's actually in and playing and producing for the team. But when he's not available, it's always something weird. It's always something where he's maybe available to play on it, maybe not. We saw in the finals, like, oh, he's not available to play, but then he comes back and plays game 5 for a little bit. Obviously, he's not the same. Now we're dealing with this illness a year later. I've been on this point. You know, I don't know if I want to go so far down on this after a win at MSG in game 3, but
Yeah.
Kristaps Porzingis with his status this year, playing 42 games, not being available when you really need him in this series, he's putting himself front and center on the target of who could potentially be traded for the Celtics this summer to clear some cap space for this team. Kristaps Porzingis, if he's a 50-50 guy, if you're going, I don't know if he's going to be healthy at the most important time of the season, he could be a player in which the Celtics could 100% move off later on in time. Because in this summer, I'll say this offseason, the Celtics could 100% move off of Kristaps Porzingis this summer because of his availability in these NBA playoffs and just this weird stretch of availability from himself. Again, 42 games played this NBA season, 39 games missed, and he misses 9 out of 10 games in March, comes back, plays well. The Celtics are putting him on ice like an old guy this year. I mean, he's age 29 going on 30, and they're treating him like he's Al Horford's age, like he's 38 years old. But now you have this illness issue that is seemingly linked to the illness from a month ago, but he's not like, I just don't understand how this transpires. I don't know how he's so available the last week of the season. I don't know how he's so available for the Magic series, yet all of a sudden coming into this Knicks series, he has the same illness from 2 months ago, and we've seen him play well and be available since. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree.
It doesn't make any sense how he has an illness, but he's just limited to 14 minutes and 18 minutes. Again, can you not play 20, 25 minutes if you're playing 14 and 18 minutes? Like you're good enough to play 14 minutes and 18 minutes of hard NBA basketball, playoff basketball, but not 20, 25. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. What are your thoughts on Porzingis?
No, you'd think that it impact him to where he just can't play, because
right. Exactly.
With
it's like if he has a severe enough illness, he should just be on the bench.
Right, because
but he's playing.
Because it's like, he's able to play those 18. It's like you said, it's high level basketball, high intensity. So it doesn't really add up in that area, because I know personally when I'm on the basketball court and I'm playing just 2 minutes and I feel bad, like you're going to feel it. You're not going to be impactful and you're not going to be able to help a team. So I can see that. And then also, like, I just want to say, like, I saw him when you watch the game on the court. It just seems like he's being able to just move around a lot easier. Like he just doesn't look like himself from like a physical standpoint, just like strength wise. I don't know. I just think he seems like he can be moved around a lot easier. And he just doesn't seem to have like that mental focus and clarity. It seems like he's occasionally like kind of jogging up the court, which I understand he's not feeling well, But it's like, at what point do we draw the line at just not utilizing him, right? Because it's like, at what point does it negatively impact us?
I think he's such a good player and it's just such a large presence of what he can do when he's typically on the floor
Yeah,
that you could make an argument that's like you could decoy him even if he's not healthy
that's
out on
true.
the floor. But then, we've seen that in the past. You can only do that for so long before another team starts picking on it time
Right.
and time again.
Hmm.
But just this whole situation is just so confusing to me, and it seems like he's ramping up. But again, it's like, well, he was already back from that illness slash injury these past 2 months, and now he's just dealing with the same. This is where I'm like, how do people know this is the same thing? Well, how did this was there a report that came out and said it was the same? Like, I've heard it was the same thing. That's from the folks here on this broadcast. So it's like, well, whoever is on this broadcast has as much credibility as me in terms of giving out
Hmm.
reports because we're giving out reports from other people here. But the the situation just I'm
Yeah. I,
Porzingis. I'm getting a little annoyed. Okay, I
I
don't
was
care
thinking,
about the unavailability in the regular season. Okay, if you want to rest in the regular season or if you're hurt in the regular season, that's one thing. Okay, the NBA playoffs is where you really make your bread and butter. Because look, I'm gonna compare this again with Robert Williams 2 years ago or
right?
3 years ago now.
Why we
Robert
traded Robert?
Williams was not healthy in the most crucial moment of the season. He played 61 games in 21-22. That's phenomenal. Almost won Defensive Player of the Year alongside Marcus Smart. One of those two guys could have won. I mean, if it wasn't Smart, it could have been Robert Williams. But played 61 games that year. But that was an outlier. He's never like Robert Williams has never reached near 61. Not since then, not before then, not at any point in time. And then when it came to the playoffs, he was in and out of the lineup dealing with a meniscus injury. He had meniscus surgery in March that year of 2022. He was just in and out of the lineup, and he wasn't available in the most crucial moments of the season. And then the Celtics, they feel okay trading him away a year and a half later because they're thinking, well, Robert Williams, we can't trust him to be out there on the floor in the most crucial moment of the season. Like we can't do that. And Robert Williams has shown us since then. Well, he's only played 35 games with the Trailblazers in 2 seasons. 35 games. I mean, imagine if the Celtics had that on the roster. They'd be missing a huge piece of their roster if Robert Williams was only playing 35 games in 2 seasons. Well, Kristaps Porzingis, he's reaching the same level right now, and maybe not so much of Robert Williams is maybe a little bit more of a severe case just because of how young his NBA career still is versus Porzingis. Porzingis has some of the mileage, but that could also make Porzingis's case worse too, where you go, well, Porzingis, he has more mileage, more chance he actually breaks down and potentially suffers of further injuries down the line, keeping him out more time. But this is where, to me, right now, Kristaps Porzingis, he's almost in the same boat as Robert Williams is. We're in the most crucial moment of the season. Right now, it's the Eastern Conference semifinals. We're down, well, now we're down 2-1 to the Knicks, but coming into today, down 0-2 to the Knicks. Coming into game two, down 0-1 to the Knicks. These are the most crucial moments of the season for the Celtics, too. I mean, this is the reflection point of the Celtics season, whether it goes, okay, we're going to go back to back and win a title, or we're going to go home and sit on the couch and watch somebody else do it. Because right now, right at this moment in time, right? The Celtics won today. If they lose, they're done. Their season is pretty well over. This game was important. And you have Kristaps Porzingis missing the first half of game one. You have Kristaps Porzingis playing 14 minutes in game two and now 18 minutes tonight. That is a signal to me for the future going, okay, if you're starting to add up this data, right? He was terrible in the Magic series. He missed most of last year's playoff run outside of what? I want to say 3, 4, 5 games, somewhere around there. Missed the Eastern Conference Finals last year, the semifinals last year. He's missing time this year, and he's on a minutes restriction essentially right now. These are all data points for the future when Bill Chisholm's coming to Brad Stevens' office going, look, we need to shed about 20 million off our cap book.
Yeah.
We need to shed about 30 million off our cap book because I can't pay this $500 million luxury tax bill right now. We need to cut some salary off these books. I guarantee you a name that will be looked at will be Kristaps Porzingis because of
what?
his availability. If
You know
no
what?
matter how talented you are, if you're not if you cannot be accounted for in the most important moment of the season, if you're not going to be available, availability is the best ability. And that's something teams 100% will look at and the track record of and make decisions on. And that's, I don't want to look too far ahead with the Celtics summer right now and saying that's definitively going to happen, because obviously if the Celtics win this series and Kristaps plays phenomenally in the conference finals and the finals and we win the finals, there's no chance he's traded this summer.
No.
But in the series, to me, it's getting a little annoying where I'm going, okay, Kristaps, we're always on the fence about his health. It's like, is he going to be healthy? Well, he's showing us the last 2 playoff runs, his inability to be healthy consistently in the most crucial moment of the season, in the most critical time in the playoffs. If he's not healthy at those times, it's like, we might need to look somewhere else. We might need to look at selling high on Kristaps. I hate to bring it out. I hate to bring it up like this after a game 3 dominant win at the Garden, but when you're seeing 18 minutes out of Kristaps Porzingis and we're needing to praise Al Horford over his 34 minutes played, there's the little tiny, maybe more so, maybe a bigger issue there than we're actually giving it credit for. So
Yeah.
Kristaps, where he's at, I mean, it's so confusing.
You know what kind of concerns me too is like the lack of transparency with this illness. Like we have no idea.
It's always like that from NBA clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's annoying too.
What
That's
if it's
annoying
like-
too.
What if it's like this illness that like it's deeper than that and like they just don't know yet? It's like that's scary too. Like who knows? What if this is like kind of stays with them for, I don't know, maybe it's not even an illness. It stays with them for a longer period of time. It's like, and we realize that see him on the medical team. It's like you can't even trade him. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how realistic of a concern that is, but I don't know. I mean, it's something that's racing through my mind. You know,
For certain. I mean, I that's the thing is like how much trade value does Kristaps Porzingis even
That
have this
too.
summer with his availability and everything? But again, you could run into a scenario if you're the Celtics where maybe if you don't move off him, he just continuously deals with these issues and he's just not
the trade value.
I mean, look, last year we win the finals and it's all hunky dory, but at the same time, it's like, okay, Kristaps Porzingis then had to sit out for half a season. It's like that could have been equally as disastrous. Say this playoff run, if Kristaps Porzingis, if something were to happen at the beginning of next season or this playoff run, he misses half the year. It's like that's just all on the board with Kristaps and how just unhealthy. I hate to use that word unhealthy, but it's like that's kind of what it is.
It's
It's
maybe
not.
it's
It's not unconditioned. It's not with health. Not with the health.
Sure. And like it sucks, but also kind of gives you insight into what a GM has to think about. There's so many more layers, to it, which is interesting.
Yeah, and Kristaps Porzingis, we'll have to see what happens with him moving forward. Just had to touch on that subject before we ended off the post game here because
we love the fact we pray to God that he finds a way to fight through it and comes out on the better side and helps us out. So that's the mindset we're at right now with him.
100%. Of course, the Celtics going into Game 4 needing a win there too. But moving ahead to Game 4, Andrew, just quick thoughts here at the end of this broadcast. What do the Celtics need to do in Game 4 in order to keep this momentum up and keep? I mean, come on. Today was definitely a must-win for the Celtics, facing a potential 0-3 deficit. But Game 4, if you lose there, you're down 3-1. So it's almost equally as much of a must-win for the C's there. But what do the C's need to do in Game 4 in order to keep up this good play?
I'm thinking just the continued effort, whether it's crashing the glass, diving on loose balls, getting back on defense. I don't know if you guys know who Ryan Hammer is. He big guy on Instagram, covers March Madness a lot. Like he's big into that, and he showed a couple clips of the first 2 games where Brown is watching a ball come off the rim and it just hits the ground and no one else is getting it. I mean, today there's a play, and I think we did such a good job in it, but where Towns is surrounded by 3 guys. A board comes down. Towns reaches down his legs and like picks it up and gets a foul and maybe even a bucket, right? So it's like, how do we win the intent? Like exactly what Emmanuel Tavares says. How do we win the intensity? How do we continue to play at a high level where we're winning the intangibles and being physical and throwing the punches rather than getting punched, you know? And how do we continue that, I think. And then also, once again, the offensive movement, not settling on the offensive end, picking apart the Knicks, running sets, making the Knicks work on the defensive end and forcing them into situations where they have to communicate, where they have to where they might get lost, you know, in translation, where we can get easy buckets. It's about getting easy buckets so that way we don't have to work too hard for every shot. And that way we can kind of, with the easy buckets, find ways to kind of grow our lead, preventing us from having to play in late game situations. That's how I see it.
Yeah, game 4, in my mind, game 4 is more dangerous than game 3 because game 3, the Celtics, they're down 0-2 in the series. They just blew 2 20-point leads. They know what the talk of the town is. They know what they just missed out on. The Celtics missed out on 2 massive opportunities at home to grab wins. And game 3, from that standpoint, you're looking at it going, all right, 0-3, we're staring that in the face. We just lost twice. I mean, you had a locker room full of pissed players. I mean, come on. Those players, the last 2 days, I'm just as an outsider looking on the looking in. I wanted to get to Saturday. Today I wanted to get to this moment where the Celtics play basketball today because sitting on that loss for 2 straight days for 48 hours afterwards, I mean, it was excruciating. I mean, we're sitting there for 48 hours going, I mean, the is this season over? Is like, how is this team going to respond? What's going to happen? Like, how are the Knicks out? Like, what? How does this change the storyline? Everything. And it's just now the Celtics obviously quiet a lot of that. I mean, just look at our comment section tonight. Our comment section, there are no Knicks fans, and no Knicks fans in our comment section
None.
tonight. After game 2,
Dead.
it was just flood. It was just a flood of Knicks fans. Flood. Tonight, the Knicks fans aren't talking. The Celtics fans are. And the Celtics certainly feel confident about themselves yet again moving forward in terms of winning this series. They understand, yes, we're down 2-1, but hey, if we win the next game, it's 2-2, it's best of 3, and anything can happen from there on out. And I feel like the urgency level is more heightened coming into game 3, knowing, we just lost these last 2. We should have won these 2 games. Everybody's talking about us. Everybody's doubting us. We have to win this game 3. We could not go down 0-3. Well, now the Celtics, they're not in as dire of straits right now. They're not being criticized. People aren't coming at them anymore. It's still, I mean, it's still going to be there from games 1 and 2, but now the urgency, I feel like, just isn't going to be as there in game 4 as it was in game 3 in terms of coming into that game. Especially now, game 4 will be 2 nights from now instead of so between games 2 and 3 there were 3 nights in between, whereas now there's only 2 nights. But this scenario going into game 4, it's a trap game. We talked about the trap games in the regular season. This is a trap game in the playoffs because you're feeling confident for the Celtics. You know what your ability is on the basketball floor, and you're trying to achieve that. But going into this game 4, I mean, your confidence level is even higher now for if you're the Celtics, and the urgency, I feel like, to actually win a game is taken away just a little bit when it shouldn't be. It absolutely shouldn't be. It's a human trait that can happen. You get back from a bad performance. You perform bad twice, and you come back with a good performance, and you're feeling pretty good. But that urgency still needs to be there to come back from those bad performances because they're still lingering in this series. It's 2-1 Knicks. The Knicks, they still lead the series on top. We're 3 games in this series. The Knicks still have the lead. The urgency still needs to be there for the Celtics, but game 4 could be very dangerous from that standpoint because now the team's feeling good. They're feeling confident about themselves. And I bet some of that urgency has gone away just a little bit, knowing, okay, we did our job now. But again, you have to do it over and over and over again in the NBA season and in the NBA playoffs and
Kobe
throughout a
Bryant
48-minute basketball game. Let's just face it, you have to do that throughout a 48-minute basketball game. The Celtics do, but ultimately, Game 4, that's going to be another. I mean, we just two games in a row where we just saw the two biggest games of the Celtics season. I mean, seriously, Game 2 is the biggest game of the Celtics season. They come out and lose that one, and then they make Game 3 easily an even bigger game. They come out, or sorry, they lost Game 2. I just said they won Game 2. They lost Game 2. They come out in Game 3. They blow out the New York Knicks on this Saturday afternoon. And I mean, this was the buzzkill game because pay $1,000, $2,000, even more so. I mean, those courtside seats, they're probably going for what? I mean, $25K, something. I mean, that seems ridiculous, but almost seems realistic for Madison Square Garden in New York for courtside to a Knicks Celtics game. That amount of money dropped on this outing only for the Celtics to come in and blow out the New York Knicks and grab as much as a 31-point lead on the night. And of course, the Celtics finish out the deal, winning the game by 22, 115-93. But that is going to do it for us here tonight on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. Moving forward, the Boston Celtics will be playing Game 4 at Madison Square Garden, another must-win game on the season for the Celtics in the NBA playoffs. We will have you guys covered for that game on Monday night. I'm thinking it's definitely Monday night. I might be wrong on that, but I'm going to go ahead and say it's Monday night. We will be on here yet again for Celtics Talk Weekly post-game live. We will have you covered for Game 4. But as for Game 3, the Boston Celtics get it done at Madison Square Garden, 115-93. And that is going to do it for us. Of course, as I always say, I am your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me tonight, Andrew Quinn.
Hey, one more thing.
Go ahead, Andrew.
As the late, great Kobe Bryant says, job's not finished.
That is certainly correct. Job's not finished. Job is not finished. C's, they need to do it again on Monday, Game 4 at MSG. Here we go. But folks, thank you all for watching here tonight, the Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. We will see you all on Monday. From me, Seamus, from Andrew alongside of me, thank you all for watching, and go Celtics.